Of the Pyathlon Python Basic series. Today we'll be talking about creating classes and objects in Python. If you're not sure what a class or an object is, then we have a video on that, and I would recommend you go watch that and then come back to this video. So let's begin by making our class. In our last video, we used the car class as an example, and we're going to program that class today. So first, you start by having the class keyword, followed by the name of the class you would like to create, in our case, car. And then you'll have a colon, which means whatever follows must be indented. In our class, we talked about 4 attributes: make, model, year, and color. And the way you define an attribute of a class is the same way you define a regular variable, except it'll be inside of a class. So we can do make, and make, model, and color will all be strings. And so we can just set to an empty string for now. We'll talk about how you can actually configure these values later, but for now we'll set make, model, and color equal to empty strings. In year, we'll use an integer to represent year. We also talked about how your class can have behaviors, and a behavior, when implemented in Python, is just a function. So we talked about how this car will be able to start, drive, and turn off. So let's add that behavior now. We'll start with start. So we have def start, the name of our function. And in this function, all we'll do is print starting the car. Now, one important thing you need to remember is when you're defining a function within a class, you have to pass in the self keyword as a parameter in your function. Every time you define a function, you'll need to do this. And what self means is it's referring to the object that's calling the function. And we'll do the same thing with drive, and we'll pass in self, because when we have an object that calls this function, then it will call the object method. So the method associated with the object will be called. And then here we'll just print driving the car. And we'll also have a turn off function. And we'll say turning off the car. Now, right now, make, model, and color are all set to an empty string, and year is set to 0. And that's not desirable behavior. We want to be able to change these so we can make multiple objects from this class and still have them be different things. For example, if you have multiple makes, then you'll want to be able to configure this variable. But the way this class is now, you can't do that. So how can we fix that? And you can implement in Python to do that, and it's called an initialization function. And the way you create this initialization function is similar to the way you create other functions, but a bit different. So you have the def keyword as always, and the name of this function will be init, I-N-I-T, but you'll have 2 underscores before and after the word init. So you'll have def underscore underscore, I-N-I-T underscore underscore. And remember, this is a function inside of a class, so we have to pass in this self. And here, what we'll have are values that we want to overwrite these default values with. So we'll call these make, model, color, and year. Now, it doesn't matter what you call these. They don't need to match this exactly. So I could call this year underscore B or something. It doesn't matter. But what we pass in here will overwrite these values, and so we'll be able to make different objects and have them have different make, models, colors, and years. So then we'll have our colon, and we'll indent. And here we need to make sure that each of these is set to whatever is passed into this initialization function. And the way you do that is you use the self keyword again. So you do self.make. And when you use self.make, it's referring to the attribute of the class or of the object that you're creating from the class. And we'll set that equal to make. So self.make is referring to this make, the one that is the attribute of the class. And this make is referring to what's passed in to this initialization function. So whatever gets passed into this will overwrite this and so it will rewrite the value of that attribute so we can set it to whatever we want. And then we'll do that with the other variables. And now our class is complete, so we can run that. And now let's make an object from this class. It can be very simple. So first, we'll have the variable name we want to store our object in. And we'll create a Honda Accord object, so that's what we'll call our variable. Then you'll have the assignment operator, and then the name of the class of which you're trying to create an object from in parentheses. And these parentheses preceded by the name of the class, this we'll call our initialization function. So we don't need to pass in self, but we do need to pass in these four things. These four parameters, we'll pass them in as arguments here. So we need to pass in our make, which we'll do Honda, our model, which will be Accord, the color, we'll make it black, and the year, we'll say 2020. And then we can just run that, and now we have a Honda Accord object created from our car class. And let's look at some of the attributes of this. So you can just have your object, you can use the dot operator, and then you can just type in any attribute here. So if we do make, it tells us Honda. If we do model, Accord, if we do color, it will tell us the color, and year, it will tell us the year. You can also access functions in a similar way. You have the name of your object, the dot operator, and then the function. So we're using a Honda Accord object to call the start function, and that's why it prints starting the car. You can also call drive and turn off. In the last video, we mentioned you can create multiple objects from a single class. So let's do this. Let's repeat this process again. So we'll just copy and paste this, except this time we'll have a Toyota Camry object. So we'll change Honda to Toyota. We'll make that a Camry. We'll change the color to silver, and let's change the year to 2019. And then, once again, we can access whatever functions or attributes that we like using this new object. So this is just a high-level overview of classes and objects. These are foundational to object-oriented programming. In later videos, we'll go more in depth with object-oriented programming and talk about what makes a programming language object-oriented. But understanding classes and objects are fundamental to being able to truly understand object-oriented programming. So thank you for watching this video, and we hope to see you in the next video.